Why you feel like you were born in the wrong life. Buddhism's answer. Part 1. The story that makes us feel lost. You were sitting quietly, maybe at your desk, maybe near a window. Then a strange thought appeared, soft but sharp. This doesn't feel like my life. It didn't shout. It didn't cause panic. But it stayed, like a shadow just behind you. You looked around, your job, your apartment, the way your days unfold, and something felt off, as if you were meant to live a different life. Be someone else, somewhere else. This feeling isn't rare. It visits many people, often when things look fine on the outside. But inside, something doesn't match. Like wearing clothes that fit your body, but not your soul. Psychology has a few names for this. Carl Rogers spoke about the gap between who we are and who we think we should be. That gap can cause quiet pain. We see other people's lives on screens and stories and wonder why ours doesn't look like that. We carry ideas of who we were supposed to become. And when life doesn't match that story, discomfort grows. Sometimes this pain comes from past wounds, memories we didn't choose, expectations we couldn't meet, a childhood moment where we were made to feel small, a voice that said, "You'll never be enough." These stories sink deep. Over time, they become the lens through which we see everything. But Buddhism invites us to go further. Not just to heal the wound, but to question the hand that keeps touching it. What if the self you think is missing was never real to begin with? What if it's just a habit of thought, a bundle of memories, labels, and hopes? In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha spoke of a familiar thought many of us carry. This is mine. This I am. This is myself. But then he said that holding this view is where suffering begins. This is called Sakkaya Ditthi, identity view. The belief in a solid, lasting self. The feeling that there is a real me trapped in the wrong life. If you believe there's a perfect version of you somewhere out there, then everything you are now starts to feel like a mistake. But who told you that version was more real than this one? The person who's here, breathing, wondering, hurting, hoping, this person is not less real just because they don't match the dream. The Danish thinker Kierkegaard once said, "Our deepest fear is not death, but not becoming ourselves." That sounds powerful. But the Buddha would ask, what self are you trying to become? Are you chasing a ghost? Are you holding a picture so tightly that you've stopped seeing what's right in front of you? Maybe the life isn't broken. Maybe the story is. Part 2. When karma isn't the answer. And yet, even when you begin to see that the story was never solid, another question quietly appears. If the story isn't real, why does life still hurt? If the self is just a bundle of thoughts, why does the pain feel so deep, so personal? Even when you stop chasing the dream of a different life, suffering still shows up. Why? Some people feel like they were born into the wrong life. Others feel like life is punishing them for something they can't even remember. Maybe you felt this way too. You try to live kindly. You try to make good choices, to care for people, to do your best. And yet, the pain keeps appearing. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet ache in the background, a silent question that refuses to leave. If karma is real, why does life still hurt? This question doesn't come from pride or selfishness. It often comes from confusion, from the deep need to understand. You might wonder if you did something wrong in a past life. Or perhaps you've felt that life is giving you punishment for something you don't even know. But Buddhism teaches that karma is not punishment. It's not a system of rewards and punishments controlled by someone else. Karma simply means intention, what you choose, what you think, what you do with awareness. The Buddha said, "It is volition, monks, that I call karma." Karma is not about blame. It's about direction. It's about cause and result. But even when you live with good intentions, suffering can still find you. Because life is not made from karma alone. Life is woven from many threads: your past actions, your present choices, your body, your family, your society, your environment, and even the time in which you are born. Some seeds you planted yourself. Some seeds were planted long before you arrived. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha explained that karma ripens in its own time. Some seeds grow quickly, some grow slowly, and some may not appear until long after this life is over. So when pain arrives, it doesn't always mean you caused it. Sometimes you are simply standing under the rain. Sometimes you are living inside conditions you didn't choose. Some burdens were already waiting for you the moment you took your first breath. Some storms began long before you entered this world. Life carries echoes of old choices, old histories, old sorrows that move through families, through cultures, through generations. And sometimes, the pain you feel is not only yours, it is the weight of what has been passed down. And when you carry that weight, it's easy to feel lonely, as if no one else could understand the shape of your suffering. But the truth is, this quiet ache belongs to many hearts. Somewhere, someone else is carrying the same question. Somewhere, another life is wrestling with the same rain. You are not alone in this ocean of causes. You are part of a much larger story. This life is not a punishment. It's a moment, a small wave inside a great ocean of causes and conditions that flow across lifetimes, across generations, across all living beings. When you begin to see this, something quietly shifts. You stop asking, "Why me?" and you begin asking, "What now?" The question changes from guilt to curiosity, from blame to presence. This is where freedom begins to open. Karma is not a prison. It's a mirror. It shows you your patterns, your habits, your way of moving through the world. It invites you to see your life not as something to escape, but as something to understand. To understand karma is not to become passive. It is to see clearly where your true power of choice lies. Awareness is what gives karma its new direction. Awareness is what allows you to choose again, not in the past, not in some distant future, but right now. And that is more than enough. You are not a mistake. You are not the final result of some hidden punishment. You are a human being, shaped by things you see and things you don't. But you are also something much more. You are the one who can choose again. And sometimes, in the middle of a life that feels heavy, that simple truth is the beginning of peace. Part 3. The life you thought you missed. When you begin to understand karma as choice, not punishment, another ache can quietly appear. It's not the loud ache that asks, "Why is my life like this?" It's the softer one that whispers, "I should have had another life." Maybe you imagine a life where you were someone else, a different city, a different job, a different version of yourself that somehow feels more right. It doesn't always feel painful. Sometimes it just lingers, like a quiet regret, a silent pull towards something you think you missed. Buddhism has a word for this thirst. It's called tanha, craving. But not just craving for food or money. It's a deeper hunger for another life. A life that seems more beautiful, more meaningful, more fitting. The Buddha explained 3 kinds of craving that quietly shape our experience. The first is kama tanha, the craving for pleasure. It's the wish for a sweeter life, a life with more joy, more adventure. You see other people's stories, on screens, in conversations, and suddenly, your own life feels smaller. The second is bhavatana, the craving for being. It's the quiet thought, "I should have been someone else." Maybe you imagine yourself as an artist, a healer, a traveler. It feels like you missed your true life. It feels like sadness, but it's still craving, because it holds the belief that something essential is missing right now. The third is vibhava tanha, the craving for non-being. It whispers, "I wish I could disappear." It doesn't always arrive as despair. Sometimes it just feels like numbness, like a quiet wish to escape. Not just the life, but yourself. The Buddha said, "The world is led on by craving. By craving, it is dragged about." These cravings don't just shape what we want. They shape what we believe we've lost. But here's the difficult part. The life you think you missed never existed. It was built in the mind. A beautiful story, perhaps. But a story, like a dream. And like a dream, it fades when you see it clearly. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "We are condemned to be free." As humans, we have the freedom to imagine thousands of lives. And sometimes, we suffer because we believe the ones we imagined were the ones we were supposed to live. But those pictures were never solid. They were born from craving, from comparison, from old voices that told you life should look a certain way. This is not just a mistake of thought. It's part of dukkha, the unsatisfactory nature of clinging to things that are imagined, changing, or impossible to hold. The mind creates stories, and when life refuses to follow those stories, the mind suffers. What if the pain of feeling like you missed your life is not a sign that you were born into the wrong one? What if it's a quiet invitation to wake up, not to a new life, but to the one you already have? You don't need to destroy your dreams. You just need to see them clearly. See how the mind builds imaginary lives and gently see through them. They aren't bad. They simply aren't solid. And when you stop chasing what was never truly there, something soft begins to return. Your breath, your body, this moment. And perhaps, even in this ordinary life, the one you thought you didn't want, something sacred begins to quietly open. Part 4. Coming home to the life that's already here. So when you begin to see that the life you thought you missed never truly existed, something quietly softens. The craving loses its grip. But that doesn't mean the feeling disappears forever. Sometimes, even after all the stories begin to dissolve, the old thought returns. This isn't my life. It comes at unexpected moments, not in crisis, but in quiet. Sitting with a cup of tea, waiting for the bus, looking out the window at the morning light. And suddenly, almost out of habit, the old thought surfaces. I was supposed to be somewhere else. But something has changed. This time, you're not running from it. You're not trying to silence it. You're just watching, gently, curiously. Buddhism doesn't ask you to push this feeling away. It invites you to stay with it. Not because suffering is beautiful, but because it can point to something deeper. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said, "Where there is suffering, there is a path." The ache itself, the restlessness, the quiet sadness, is not your enemy. It can be a doorway. Most people try to escape this ache by changing their life. They move to new places, chase new dreams. Sometimes these changes help, but sometimes the same ache returns anyway. Different house, same restlessness, different partner, same longing. That's because the ache often isn't in the life, it's in the way we see. This is where sati, mindfulness, becomes more than a practice. It becomes the way we begin to truly meet life. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha said, "Contemplate feelings simply as feelings. Contemplate mind simply as mind." You don't need to believe the thought, "I should have had a different life." You don't need to fight it. You simply watch it pass, like a cloud across the sky. When you look gently, you may find something beneath the thought. Maybe it's not really about another life. Maybe it's just a quiet wish to feel peace, to feel whole, to feel at home. The Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi once asked, "Am I a man dreaming I'm a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I'm a man?" Maybe life itself is a kind of dream, not because it's false, but because we live so deeply inside the stories we create. Maybe awakening isn't about escaping the dream. It's about realizing we're dreaming and learning to open our eyes here in the life we already have. This doesn't mean you should stay in harm or remain silent in the face of injustice. Buddhism never asks you to endure unnecessary pain. But when suffering comes from craving, from the belief that life was supposed to look a certain way, the answer isn't always to change the outside world. Sometimes the answer is to see it more clearly. You don't need a perfect life. You need a mind that can see without clinging. That kind of seeing doesn't erase pain, but it stops adding to it. It allows you to sit with what is, without the weight of what was supposed to be. And in that simple presence, something precious may begin to appear. Not a loud victory, not a dramatic change, just a quiet trust, a gentle coming home. So when the next wave of restlessness arrives, and it will, you don't need to fight it. You don't need to fix it. Just notice it. Breathe with it. Sit beside it like an old friend. Ask it softly, "What are you trying to show me?" And then simply listen, not with your thoughts, but with your attention. Sometimes, the life you thought you didn't want, the life you tried to escape, was simply waiting for you to arrive. Maybe peace was never in another life. Maybe peace is in this one, seen clearly, lived fully, with nothing left to chase. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to find another life. You just need to come home, to this breath, this moment, this ordinary life. And maybe this was home all along.